of the NFL, where Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers has requested a trade. That has been confirmed by our very own Jonathan Jones. Now, over the past 2 years, no Raiders player has more receiving yards or touchdowns than Meyers. He's entering the final deal of a 3-year deal with the Raiders. The final season, He signed back in 2023. Meyers is set to become a free agent after this season. All right, let's welcome in our NFL analyst, John Breach, here to discuss. Breach, great to see you. We actually talked to JJ about this a little bit earlier when the news broke here, and he said, hey, it's very unlikely that Jakobi Meyers is actually going to leave Vegas, but he is in the final year of his deal, as just mentioned. So what do you think it ultimately would take for the Raiders to kind of initiate some sort of movement here or some sort of trade?
Yeah, Jacqueline, it doesn't seem like the Raiders want to trade him, as JJ mentioned. But let's be honest, this is the NFL. Everybody has a price. So if some team were to call the Raiders up and offer a 3rd-round pick, I think that absolutely gets the deal done. But that would be probably overpaying. So maybe the situation where a team calls up and offers a 4th-round pick. You look at some of the bigger name receivers that have been traded this year. Deebo Samuel got sent to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick. George Pickens got sent to the Dallas Cowboys. There was a 3rd and a 5th-round pick involved there. And the Steelers got 1 pick back. And, of course, the DK Metcalf trade involved a 2nd-round pick. So 2nd round is going to be a little too high for Jakobi Meyers. So 3rd definitely gets it done, I would think. 4th maybe gets it done, even for a team that doesn't want to do a deal.
All right, as you mentioned, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. So let's talk landing spots, shall we? And we're starting with the team that needs some wide receiver depth in the Minnesota Vikings. They have their young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and we know that Justin Jefferson dealing with a hamstring injury, and then also Jordan Addison dealing with that suspension. So they do need some help at wide receiver, Breach.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do know that they've been in talks with the Panthers. They've been trying to do a reunion with Adam Thielen, but nothing has happened on that front just yet. And so why not call up the Raiders and bring in Jakobi Meyers? As you mentioned, Jacqueline, they have some short-term issues right now. They know Jordan Addison is not going to be available for the first 3 games of the season. You look at Justin Jefferson, yes, he's going to be out in the field in week 1, but he missed a good chunk of training camp with that hamstring injury. And as we all know, hamstrings can be a difficult injury to deal with. Those can flare up at any time. And when you're running routes on every single play, you don't know how well that injury is going to hold up throughout the season. So adding someone like Jakobi Meyers would just give them some receiving insurance that you want to have when you have a first-year starting quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Because if Jordan Addison is suspended and Justin Jefferson gets injured in week 1 because of the hamstring, who's J.J. McCarthy throwing to in week 2? So that's what you have to think about if you are the Vikings. What happens in the worst-case scenario? So that's why they are trying to trade for receivers.
Let's go to Pittsburgh, shall we? Because it is the Aaron Rodgers era there, at least for 1 more year. And they also got some weapons for Aaron Rodgers via trade in the offseason in DK Metcalf and Jonnu Smith. But do you think they need maybe 1 more weapon there in Pittsburgh for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it really feels like they do. They've already done more than what Pittsburgh usually does. They made the trade for Jonnu Smith. They made the trade for DK Metcalf. So they've already added 2 key weapons for Aaron Rodgers. But when you look at just the receiving depth chart, there is just not a lot outside of DK Metcalf. We're looking at this right now. You have Scotty Miller and Lance McCutcheon lining up there, Robert Woods, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin. So there's not really a name that I think that Aaron Rodgers can trust right now. One of those guys could step up, have a big season. But if you trade for someone like Jakobi Meyers, that really puts opposing defenses in a bind, because now you can't sit out there and double team DK Metcalf all the time, because you have a true threat on the other side. And Meyers would be a fantastic number 2 receiver. And I'm not sure he would want to be a number 2 receiver because he's the number 1 guy in Las Vegas. But that would be a pretty solid duo if you teamed up DK Metcalf with Jakobi Meyers.
Breach, I know you know this. My dad is from West Mifflin. I'm related to a lot of Steelers fans, and they're already like vibes are high. They're going to win a playoff game. So if Jakobi Meyers goes there, I feel like they might start thinking they're going to win a Super Bowl or something crazy, right? Let's go to New England. So a reunion of sorts, right? Because Jakobi Meyers spending the first 4 years of his career in New England. So why would this reunion sort of make sense for him?
Well, I think you look at where we are on the calendar. The NFL season starts in less than 2 weeks. So if you're a receiver who gets traded, you do have to go in and learn a new offense, and that is not easy to do. So that's going to be the biggest challenge if you end up in Minnesota or Pittsburgh or somewhere else. But if you go to New England, Josh McDaniels is your offensive coordinator. Well, that's who Jakobi Meyers started his career with in New England. And not only were they in New England together, but when Josh McDaniels got hired as the head coach of the Raiders in 2022, guess who he went out and brought with him 1 year later? Jakobi Meyers. So they've been together on two different teams. Jakobi Meyers absolutely understands Josh McDaniels' offensive system, so there wouldn't be a lot to learn. He could step in, and he would be at a minimum a number 2 receiver right away with the Patriots. He'd be an upgrade almost anyone they have, and possibly a number 1, depending on the health of Stephon Diggs. He was one of the biggest free agency signings for New England, but coming off that torn ACL, we don't know what he's going to look like. So getting Jakobi Meyers in there would give Drake May a very good weapon. And Jacqueline, the Patriots have a lot of salary cap space, so they can afford whatever Jakobi Meyers' asking price is.
So potential Jakobi Meyers revenge game loading for week 1 with the Patriots and the Raiders, just adding to the storylines there. Finally, want to talk about San Francisco because probably the most banged up receiver room in the National Football League. You know, Brandon Ayuk, he's probably not going to come back until October of sorts. So tell us about your idea of this connection, Brock Purdy to Jakobi Meyers there in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's not just Brandon Ayuk, who's going to be out probably the entire first month of the season. You also have Juwan Jennings. He's been dealing with a calf injury. Not to mention, he's not happy with his contract, so you don't know when he's going to be back on the field. And then when you look further down San Francisco's depth chart, they've got guys like Jordan Watkins, Russell Gage. They're also dealing with injuries. The 49ers are so desperate, they went out and made a trade for Sky Moore last week, who was a mostly unproven receiver. So now this would give them the opportunity to trade for a proven commodity. We saw Jakobi Meyers finish with over 1,000 yards receiving.
All right, Steelers Nation, let's talk about this wild rumor that has been buzzing across the league and inside Pittsburgh circles. We're talking about Jakobi Meyers, the disgruntled $33 million wide receiver from the Raiders, and the fact that the Steelers reportedly checked in on the possibility of a trade. That's right. Omar Khan, our aggressive general manager, who has already built a reputation for leaving no stone unturned, apparently picked up the phone to see if the Raiders were serious about moving Meyers. And this has fans everywhere wondering, is Pittsburgh just doing its due diligence, or are the Steelers quietly hunting for that one missing piece on offense? Now, let's set the stage. Meyers is not some random name that floated out of nowhere. He's coming off a career year in Las Vegas, putting up over 1,000 yards receiving, catching 87 passes, and proving himself as one of the most reliable route runners in the entire league. Even in a Raiders offense that was inconsistent and unstable at quarterback, he still found ways to produce. That says something about who Jakobi Meyers is as a player. He doesn't need the perfect quarterback, he doesn't need the perfect system. He just shows up, runs his routes, gets open, and makes plays. And that is exactly the type of receiver Pittsburgh could use right now. Think about it. The Steelers already made the blockbuster move to bring in DK Metcalf this offseason. He's the alpha, the true number 1 receiver. He's the guy that defensive coordinators will scheme against every single week. But you can't just rely on one-star wideout, not in today's NFL. Defenses will roll coverage, double him, and try to force Aaron Rodgers to beat them with someone else. That's where a player like Jakobi Meyers becomes invaluable. He isn't flashy, but he's dependable. He's the guy who moves the chains on 3rd down, who finds the soft spots in coverage, who gives Rodgers a safety net when the deep ball isn't there. And the reports say Pittsburgh wanted the Raiders to eat part of his salary in a potential trade, which is a classic Omar Khan move. Always looking for maximum value, never overpaying if he doesn't have to. The Raiders, for now, flat out said no. They don't want to deal him, they don't want to take on money, and from their perspective, Meyers is too valuable to their offense to let go. But the fact that the Steelers even checked in speaks volumes. It shows that they are fully aware that while the roster is strong, there's still a glaring need for another reliable receiver to stand next to Metcalf. Now, let's think about the timing here. This isn't just about 2025. Aaron Rodgers is not going to play forever. He's here for maybe 1 year, maybe 2, maybe, if we're lucky, 3. You've got to maximize every single snap that Rodgers takes in black and gold. You can't afford to waste the season because your wide receiver depth is shaky. Jakobi Meyers could have been that immediate boost to ensure that this offense doesn't sputter when teams focus all their attention on DK. And beyond Rodgers, Meyers is only 28 years old. He could have been part of the bridge to whatever quarterback comes next. But let's look at the other side. If the Raiders are truly unwilling to move Meyers, then where does that leave Pittsburgh? Right now, the wide receiver room behind Metcalf is filled with youth and potential. Roman Wilson, the rookie, has shown flashes in camp and preseason. Calvin Austin has speed to burn and has made plays, but both are still unproven over a full NFL season. Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith are both strong options at tight end, which helps, but let's be real. Having another proven wideout would make life so much easier for Rodgers and for this offense as a whole. This is where fans are split. Some are frustrated that Khan couldn't get the deal done, saying this is the type of aggressive move you have to make if you're serious about competing for a Super Bowl with Rodgers. Others point out that maybe holding back was the right move. Why take on a $33 million contract if you don't have to? Why not see what you got in Wilson and Austin before making a panic trade? And let's be honest, Khan has been patient before and then struck big when the timing was right. But I'll tell you what, as a fan, just the idea of Rodgers throwing to both Metcalf and Meyers is enough to get the blood pumping. Picture it, 3rd and 6, game on the line. Rodgers drops back. The defense rolls coverage to Metcalf. Rodgers looks off the safety, and there's Jakobi Meyers sitting down right in the hole of the zone, moving the chains, keeping the drive alive. That's what he does. That's why fans got excited. That's why this rumor stung a little when it fizzled out. And here's another angle. If the Raiders keep Meyers, what happens down the line? If Vegas struggles, if their season goes south, do they revisit the trade market? Do the Steelers circle back mid-season and try again? Don't be surprised. Khan has shown he's not afraid to pull off deals in season if it means bolstering the roster for a playoff push. Remember, this is a front office that knows the window is now. Rodgers didn't come here for a rebuild. He came here to chase another ring. There's also the locker room factor. Meyers has been praised for his professionalism, for his work ethic, for being a guy teammates respect. That fits perfectly into the culture that Mike Tomlin has built in Pittsburgh. You add him to a group that already has Metcalf, Freiermuth, and some promising young talent, and suddenly the wide receiver room goes from a question mark to one of the deepest in the AFC. So Steelers Nation, here's the big question. Do you still want this trade to happen? Do you think Khan should keep pushing, keep calling Vegas, maybe sweeten the offer? Or should the team roll with what they've got and trust the young guys to step up? Personally, I love the idea of Meyers in black and gold, but I also respect Khan for not mortgaging the future or overpaying when the Raiders were clearly not budging. Let me hear from you in the comments. Would you have gone all in for Meyers? Or do you think this was the right call to hold back? Do you trust Austin and Wilson to fill that number 2 role? Or do you think another move has to come before the trade deadline? One thing's for sure, the Steelers are in win-now mode. Every rumor, every call, every potential deal reminds us of that. And as fans, we should be excited because this front office is clearly committed to giving Rodgers and this team every possible chance to bring another Lombardi back to Pittsburgh. Make sure you hit that like button if you're fired up about this rumor, and subscribe to Steelers Nation Wire for daily updates, analysis, and raw fan reaction just like this. This season is going to be a roller coaster, and we're going to be right here, riding it together every step of the way. Steelers Nation, this is our year to dream big. Let's see if Khan has one more ace up his sleeve before kickoff.